Viewtiful Joe is a game that has had the reasonable perception of it severely altered by the passage of time. Well, how about we take a look back in time? In the early 2000s, Capcom wanted to show the world that they still had it, seeing the Nintendo GameCube struggling to capture market share, and their projected sales expected at a $103 million loss on the horizon for the year 2002. Capcom proposed the unthinkable, to kill 2 birds with 5 stones. That doesn't really... I think the math there is a little off. Ushering the era of the Capcom 5. 5 exclusive games, all announced in 2002 to showcase Capcom's creativity and substantiate the fledgling GameCube as a true competitor in the console market. Among the lineup was Dead Phoenix, a dead game that never came out. Product number 3, a stylish third-person shooter. Killer 7, a stylish third-person shooter. And Resident Evil 4, a third-person shooter. I know what you must be thinking. This is so creative, but there's more. While product number 3 and Killer 7 barely made a dent, Resident Evil 4 would go on to become one of the most influential and respected games of all time. Still, a single great game is not enough to save a dying console.
And then I fired, and I missed. This went on for several hours, and then I fired, and then I missed.
After Viewtiful Joe was seeing low sales numbers, Capcom folded and sought to port it over to the PS2 to recoup losses to wider success, prompting the other games that were a part of the Capcom 5 to be ported as well. While going back on their word is behavior emblematic of low integrity, the era of the Capcom 5 demonstrated an impact on creativity in the medium of video games that has remained unprecedented to this day, showing that making an impact often isn't done by playing it safe, but by taking a chance and doing something unexpected. While the truth of the time was that GameCubes costed $200 with games costing $50. To account for inflation, that's like the console costing $300 and the game costing about $80. That's almost $400 you're choosing to not save in order to buy a PS2, an Xbox, or a personal computer, which were comparatively only slightly more expensive, or even in some cases less expensive, and allowed you to play games like The Sims, Gran Turismo, Need for Speed Underground, Tom Clancy's entire repertoire, the whole of the Grand Theft Auto series, Halo games, Halo 2 with online capabilities. The list goes on without need, and these were games that are not available on Nintendo consoles prior to 2004. While this would have disparaged any young game developer trying to make a game for a Nintendo console during this era, this wasn't seemingly a problem for developer Hideki Kamiya. Back in the mid-2000s, while other game developers were busy trying to make video games realistic and legitimize them as a real art form with brown textures and guys with bad attitudes, one Japanese madman decided, nah, I like Ultraman and The Matrix and Saturday morning cartoons and punching bullets. And initially titled Red Hot Man, but very quickly shifted into Viewtiful Joe, as the Red Hot Chili Peppers were the most popular rock band at the time, and one can easily determine what a lawsuit sounds like from that. So why play it now? Because it's a reminder that a challenge can be fun, that a good challenge often takes place internally within the player. Now that we got the story of Viewtiful Joe out of the way, now we could talk about the story of Viewtiful Joe. I swear, I write my own scripts. Joe, the blue guy here, is just watching a movie with his girlfriend, this blue girl here, Sylvia, and gets sucked into a movie. The star of the movie, and this blue guy here, named Captain Blue, explains through a light in the sky that I'm dead. You have to take my place because I'm dead. He then gives you a superhero band called the V-Watch, which allows the user to transform into a super powerful superhero upon uttering the word Henshin. Without question, Joe transforms into the titular hero, Viewtiful Joe. And then game happens. While tongue-in-cheek, Viewtiful Joe's intro sets up the framework for the entire game's structure in a way that does justice to all of its film cliche, arcade, and comic book influences so that anyone can understand what's going on and so that it doesn't waste your time, while playing into its own ridiculous narrative with restraint enough so that it still doesn't become a spectacle. Speaking of spectacle, would you just take a look at this game? No matter how much chaos ends up on screen, the game in motion stands out in the fact that it never overlaps into some visual mush. While in a regular game, a flashy and creative art direction using thick outlines, pop art explosions, and exaggerated perspective shifts would be an aspect of gameplay that has merit on its own. In Viewtiful Joe, the level of polish and overlap that it has with other aspects of the game highlight the mindfulness of them. The game is built around them, not within their margins. It's so unapologetic to show off how striking its visuals are in every moment of gameplay. Distinct visual and audio cues like the Muhammad Ali style foot shuffle, or subtle agitated puffs of steam coming from their masks letting you know that an attack is coming in a stylish way, all blend nicely and don't overcrowd into a messy image, or overpower the soundtrack so much that you don't hear it. An eclectic soundtrack composed of rock, pop, funk, electronic, and atmospheric tracks that enhance the vibe of each level. Each boss track distinguishes their respective stylistic choices, like Rhino Hotel, or Dark Fiend, or the Shop Theme. And the Shop Theme could have been anything, but they decided to try to make the drummer who's playing have a heart attack before it's over, just for flair. Every element chosen in atmosphere or aesthetic expression complement each other to support the player's engagement in spectacle, rather than just watching it happen or going through the motions. Yeah, the visuals and the audio are great and all that, and awesome and cool and nice, but how does it play? How's the game, buddy?
Like a dream. Or you can punch bullets. Like a rabid beast in a cage broke out, and instead of going on a murderous rampage like he wanted to, he made the best battle system in any game ever made, and then got back into the cage.
It's just a game. It's just a game.
I am the shirt tucked into your jeans. I am the tape on the bridge of your glasses. I am the calculator in your back pocket. I'm the protector this pocket deserves.
Come on.
I am the pocket protector.
Nothing personal, but is it number one or number two?
Please don't leave. Let me explain. In Viewtiful Joe, combat revolves around a mixture of punches and kicks, which may sound boring if it weren't for the defining feature of Viewtiful Joe, the VFX powers, allowing you to slow down time, speed up time, and zoom in the camera. Which might sound boring if it wasn't for the defining feature of Viewtiful Joe in reality, that it is deceptively simple. Slow-mo doesn't just slow down time. It has the effect of what slow-mo usually does in movies, high impact, where if you choose to punch an enemy in slow motion, they'll often go flying across the screen. Similarly, if you use the Mach speed function, you can quickly eliminate a full board of enemies with just mashing the buttons on the controller. The push and pull of these two mechanics allows you to augment the pace of the entire game, while the zoom in power makes it so most enemies are frozen on screen, likely inspired in awe by the great Viewtiful Joe. It'll also drastically multiply the amount of damage that you do, but that's negligible in the presence of the great Viewtiful Joe. It'll also cut off a large portion of the screen, creating the potential for a risk and reward situation, where you're not 100% sure what's flying at you, but you may be more capable of handling it because you do more damage. And you could switch between all of these in real time, with the only constraint being this blue bar on the top of the screen, which you can upgrade by picking up this little blue colored film reel. I thought it was like a blue Mario hat because of the GameCube. Anytime I see Viewtiful Joe referenced online, I learn about something new in it. I learn about some new mechanic in it I swear wasn't there last time I played. And at the same time, see the same person complain about a supposed problem the game has, where you can see from the gameplay, they didn't even buy the Red Out kick. Buy this. This thing. Get this. Don't neglect to buy this. This
Here, get this.
I have failed to see a singular other game's battle system match the level of precision necessary to make a battle system like this even work. It's very easy for me to imagine somebody who has no reference for a game that's designed in this dense of a fashion to be incredibly overwhelmed. I'm not even sure how to describe the way that it's designed without using words that I would normally never use.
For instance, the grading system in Viewtiful Joe isn't just some arbitrary measure of performance. It's the foundation of the game's philosophy, pushing the player to master its mechanics fully, grading you on its own scale. If you lopsidedly get better at eliminating enemies quickly, but do it by using one power you like the whole time. If you defeat enemies stylishly and quickly, but take too much damage. If you eliminate enemies stylishly and don't take any damage but take forever to do it. This mechanic is what I see the most misunderstanding of the game from newcomers pertains to, as this mechanic, especially in games with prevalent scoring systems, is often irrelevant when it's present in other games. At the end of each encounter, Joe is graded based on speed, style, and efficiency, awarding in-game currency for upgrades. Now don't misunderstand. This is the only way to obtain upgrades. This is the only way to get more powerful. The only way to make the game easier is to get better at it.
A game like Dark Souls is hard, but it's potentially circumventable through avoidance and diversification where your time is ultimately spent. If it's ultimately spent towards spearheading level ups, you can overcome necessarily any obstacle in the game. In Dark Souls 1, this is tedious and not encouraged. In Bloodborne and Sekiro, it's very, very, very tedious and absolutely dire that you never do this. In Dark Souls 2, this is doable. In Dark Souls 3, this is easy and encouraged. But in Elden Ring, it's outright demanded. To play the game in the order it is intended is not only to miss the point of the game being designed this way, but to deliberately look up where those places of intention are on the wiki. Because saying you found those places miraculously on your own is a bold-faced lie. You are a bold bag of Worcestershire lying like that. You ain't got no maiden. You're not very bold. I sense liarship. You could still be challenged by intentionally following the game's rules, but things like this happen, or this, or that garbage happens. Okay, you get it. The game is demanding, if not outright ordering you to circumvent its difficulty in some way, somehow, throughout the game. In contrast, Viewtiful Joe doesn't offer these outs. You either improve or you don't progress. Elden Ring offers the illusion of mastery while still allowing the player to brute force their way through patience and grinding. Who wants to go to the store and buy some milk, get some eggs and milk, and Dora the Explorer? The biggest change in game difficulty isn't that games have gotten easier. Absolutely not. It's that they've prioritized persistence. It's that they've prioritized brute force instead of learning. Viewtiful Joe teaches players through failure. It wastes their time. I don't want to allow anybody to think that it doesn't also waste your time a lot, but it uses failure as an opportunity to teach. Ubisoft games remove failure as a meaningful concept. Elden Ring sells the idea of difficulty, but allows players to endure it rather than conquer it. Viewtiful Joe is making you conquer it, or you're not playing. Games today aren't necessarily afraid of true difficulty, losing, or making the player feel like it's their fault. It's always the player's fault in the modern game somehow. They're flat out against the idea that prevention of progress through failure is crucial to the core of what a challenge even is.
You think I'm playing? You think I'm playing? Take fun. Take fun.